Let's talk about how you applied, because being an architect, having to envision a building and go through the process of building up, meeting the specs and everything you do to be an architect. Do you think that kind of shaped your process for creating content?
It shaped me in a lot of ways, for sure. Probably the biggest way it's shaped me was because I was working so hard as an architect to climb that corporate ladder. I was never really recognized for that. I did so much work, and it was always just, okay, thanks, here's your next thing to turn in next week or whatever. And I have my fingerprint on several buildings in the United States. Nobody will ever know. Nobody will ever know. And, I can't, how can I even prove that, right?
Yeah.
And then when I got laid off and I started teaching people how to pass an architectural exam, that was my niche. People were sending me emails that were like life stories and thank yous and calling me by name. I was getting more praise, more recognition doing that in this little tiny space with one particular exam than I was doing these big things in architecture. So that shaped me because I was like, wow, I personally can make an impact on people. Let me lean into that even more and get into the user stories. Who are these people? What do they need? Again, similar to what I talked about earlier. And that's why that's always been the case for me when it comes to businesses. Let me immerse myself in that space, see what everybody's talking about, and see how I can contribute. Or if I don't know the answers, I'm going to go find the answers for you. The other way it shaped me is the way that architecture works is it's a very long process, right? To go from ideation to then creation and then, all the things and all the adjustments that need to happen. Like your initial drawings are never going to be what the building actually looks like. There's a lot of give and take, especially with clients, especially with engineers. So that was a process because you learn to adjust, you learn to pivot, you learn that, you're going to have to let go of some things. And that was very important for me in my entrepreneurial journey. You learn what it's like to work with crazy clients who have demands that just we don't either have the budget for or the time for. And then negotiation, that becomes a part of business very, very prominently as well. And I think the final thing is this idea of working so hard on something and it taking a long time. But when that building is finally built and you see people using it and walking through it, and it's like you get to look around, it's like, wow, this is why we did all that crap. This is amazing, and now people can live there, or people can shop there, or people can stay there. It makes it all worth it. So in the world of business, although things move faster, you still have to be patient on the macro level. Micro hustle, as Gary Vee says, and macro patience is really important. But also celebrating that end. When you launch your course or when you create that book and it's out there, like really taking moments to celebrate that, because that is the building you built that you spent all this time doing and planning and designing and adjusting and pivoting for. So learning to celebrate the wins, I think, is important. Just they were much fewer and far between in architecture. Now it's on a weekly basis. We're always launching new things. We're in cycles, and we can see the results directly and get recognized for it too.
That's awesome. Well, I think for building a thick skin going through that process, especially with clients or bosses back when you were an architect, probably helped with some of the. I mean, you probably don't get too much hate on. Your video.
There's a lot.
Is there?
Yeah.
Even with.
Here's the thing: when you draw a line in the sand and say, "Oh, things should be this way," or "I believe this is the case," which you should do. It's like if you don't stand for anything, like how can people stand with you, right? And I think a lot of creators want to play it a little too safe. I'm not saying you have to say certain things about religion or politics. Like there's a line, but even in your space, like I believe everybody should have a podcast, like, and everybody can podcast. Like that's an example. And then there's people who are going to be on the other side and who don't agree with that. And that's good, because when you have a line, yes, there's going to be people on the other side, but now you can bring people on your side and you can build this stronger community as a result of that. But I do have haters. I mean, I'm in the internet marketing space. So of course, the initial impression that people have, especially with a website titled Smart Passive Income, is going to be defaulting to doubt. So it's my job to show authentically how things actually work, that it's not get rich quick. And here are real user stories of people who have worked hard, not overnight, got success as a result of the guidance that we gave them. Okay, now they're more convinced. And those user stories, those success stories from our audience play a major role in how others perceive our brand. But no, there are haters and trolls. And I remember I didn't have a thick skin initially. No. And it was in 2011, I had a person reach out and leave a comment on my blog that was like 400 to 500 words. It was like all this disgusting stuff about how I was a con artist, how I was a fake, and all this stuff. All the numbers that I was sharing wasn't real, which they were, and just calling me out on it. And of course, I learned that, okay, if they're in your house, just like don't let them in.
Yeah.
So I blocked the IP and I was like, okay, we don't need that here. Well, I woke up the next day to 50 or 60 messages from all the different places that I was featured on, blogs and podcasts, saying, hey, there's this guy here who's leaving these nasty comments about you, and like it's just all over the internet right now. And I just fell into this deep, dark place, right? Like I started to actually believe this person because it was so out there, and I couldn't imagine what would get a person to say things like this unless it was somewhat true. Even though I knew it wasn't, it was starting to play games with my head. I didn't create content for like a month.
Wow.
And I didn't show up. People were like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Until finally a person, a good friend of mine, Derek Halpern from socialtriggers.com, reached out. He's like, bro, where have you been? And I'm like, I'm not motivated right now. Like, I can't handle any more hate and trolls. And he's like, yo, every second you're wasting on this hater is a second you're taking away from people who actually want to hear from you, who have appreciated you, who want to have you in their lives. You're letting this guy win, and I don't like you right now for that. And he is from New York. He tells it straight. And I needed to hear that because it was true. I was wasting my time getting into this deep, dark place thinking about this person and that, like one person. And it's weird. We have this weird entrepreneurial math. One negative comment is greater than and heavier than 100 positive comments. It just works out like that. So I came back and, I started to recognize that there were a lot more people who were saying great things, and I leaned into them. I eventually got on a call with this person.
Oh, wow.
Because I said,
we need to have a conversation.
What can you do? Like, no, it wasn't even like, I'm going to do anything to you.
Yeah.
It was just like, I need to learn where this came from. And he said, and I kid you not, I just thought it would be an easy way for me to get more traffic to my website.
Wow.
And I was
at
like,
least he was honest.
at least he was honest, but he had problems.
Yeah.
I've learned this since. A good friend of mine, Dr. Shannon Irvin, told me this. She said, hurt people hurt people. If you're getting hurt because of others, likely it's because of somebody who hurt them. And they're trying to either keep pushing it forward or defend themselves in some way, shape, or form, or it's usually not you. It's usually them. And, every once in a while I'll get a nasty comment or troll, and now it's my job to go, where's that coming from again? Because sometimes those comments that are negative can be useful. So I have to decipher that, and that, with a huge audience, can be very challenging. If a person doesn't like an experience in a course, for example, then it's my job to go, okay, is that true for everybody? Like, let's figure this out so we can make the experience better. And oftentimes those people who we actually make changes for in that regard actually become super fans because they're like, wow, you actually listened and you've made changes. Thank you.